Hello there again, this is Arthur at Arthur & Sons. I have a new purchase that I've made. I've been saving up a long time for this, so I just actually brought it in and I'm going to unbox it. So, here it is. It's a little heavy bugger. And let's get to it. I'm sure you guys already know what this is. If I was just to pull it out of the box the usual way, it wouldn't be as exciting, I think. So here it is. And what it is, it's a multi-process machine. It's a TIG welder, stick welder, and a plasma cutter. Basically what it does, it welds aluminum. It's an AC/DC machine. It welds aluminum. It welds pretty much everything. Why I chose to buy this machine versus getting maybe two that will do the same thing. So let's say getting a separate plasma cutter and a separate TIG welder that would do aluminum and metal and carbon steel, is because for me it's all about space. I don't have the space to just have all these machines, and just having one compact unit works for me. If you do this for a living, it just makes sense to probably have two machines. That way, if you have two people working or the setup time, you don't have to switch back and forth, let's say from the TIG welder to the plasma cutter, which probably takes a little bit of time. Also, if one breaks down, then you're out two machines. Basically, if this one was to break down, I'm out two machines, plasma cutter and the TIG welder. And if you have two separate machines, then you can basically just get one for repair and you still have the other one to work with. Other than that, I actually chose the Everlast because it is affordable, let's put it this way. So let's see what's in the other box. What's included. Overall, I must say that it actually feels really nice, like really refined. The knobs are, it feels like one of those really expensive stereo. If anybody has ever worked with a mixing board, let's say for music, it has the feel of that sort of thing. So it's like it's got a really nice feel to it. And the whole machine, the fit and finish, feels really nice. Like it doesn't feel cheap. Okay, so all the little toys in here. Foot pedal. Okay, I gotta say that it feels. It's a lot bigger than I thought it would be, so it does feel really nice. Okay, let's see how it feels under my foot. Okay guys, I gotta say it feels pretty good on the foot. Not that I've ever used one before, so I can't really compare, but it does look decent. Okay, consumables. That's for the TIG torch. This looks good. Okay, that's wrapped around. Okay guys, I must say that the TIG torch feels a lot better than I expected. It has a nice sleeve over top of it, and it's red inside, and it feels really feels like it has a lot of quality for some reason. It doesn't feel cheap. So I must say I'm pleasantly surprised with the way the TIG torch feels. I was actually thinking that I'm going to have to upgrade to maybe a better torch, but from the looks of it, I think this is going to be good enough for me. Because yeah, I've read some reviews that people were upgrading. Okay, maybe if you're really a professional and you want the best of the best, maybe you do it then. But yeah, that feels really nice. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. That's probably the air tubing. Also nice and flexible, so that's really feels good too. That's another tube for something. Stick. Okay. Yeah, that feels good too. It feels solid, feels kind of heavy. So that is really nice too. Okay. Plasma torch. So let's see. This plasma torch feels good. Has a little standoff here. And okay. So we'll use it, we'll see how that goes. And this is the ground clamp. Okay, looks like a good quality clamp. You know what, it's not that much different than the Miller clamp. And now look at this, guys. This is what came with the Miller 211. And this is a good clamp. It has so the Miller is slightly smaller, but I think the wire is a little bit more flexible on the Miller. So this one is a little bit more stiff, maybe because it is a little bit thicker as well. But it does look really good. And you know, Miller is an expensive machine, and the Miller just is a MIG machine, and it actually costs this pretty much the same as this Everlast. So, but and again, I must say I'm really happy with the Miller, so I can't complain. It's a beautiful machine. Okay, little wrench. Okay, and some consumables. I think these are for the or some parts. Oh, okay, some fittings and consumables. So these will be for the air water separator. and that is it here. So that's so that's the water separator filter. That's another box. What's in here? Let's see what's in here. Okay. So this is a flow meter. Yeah, okay, so the air here is, I guess this is our how much PSI we have in the tank. So that's the pressure gauge. And this is the flow meter, and it is in CFH. So nice. Alright guys, so I have it all assembled and set up for plasma for cutting, and I haven't turned it on yet, so I'm going to turn it on. I probably have to adjust the air pressure. I've got the water separator on. One thing that you have to get when you get yours is this little fitting. The one that came with it didn't fit my air hoses, and I think I have a quarter NTP, and this is something different. Okay, so it actually automatically shuts down if you don't have enough air pressure. So according to the instruction manual, I'm supposed to have 75 psi. Some scrap quarter-inch, and let's see if this will how this will do. So okay, it goes up to 50. So let's see what it will do. Wow, that looks pretty cool. How's that, guys? That's pretty good. So now, all I gotta do is find that piece. So that's quarter inch. Quarter inch cuts like butter, like it's like nothing. Okay guys, so the first time ever cutting with a plasma torch. So I've got to say, it's actually a nice feeling, you know, when you're doing something the first time, and it feels good. It feels really good. So I think this is going to help me do all sorts of stuff and be a lot quicker with it. So I'm going to do more videos, I think. Review, really not really educational videos, because it's not something that I really know how to do. But I must say, so far I'm really impressed with this thing. This thing is like alien. I actually had a bit of a tough time picking the machine that I want. I was actually thinking of the 164 over the 205. And the reason for that is that the 164 is able to be powered by a 110 outlet. So, but you still have to have a 20 amp circuit to make it work correctly. And even then, I think it would go only to 26 amps on the plasma torch. So you would still have to hook up to 220 if you were doing any sort of cutting that would, let's say like a quarter inch or 3/16. You would still have to hook it up to 220. And unless you're doing sort of a lot of sheet metal, I think for sheet metal you would have been good with the 164. So let's briefly go over the control panel. And I actually find it really nice that it is analog. and just by looking at the machine I can actually tell the settings, and I don't have to go through all the sub menus and trying to find out where the machine is set at. And once you memorize which switch is, or which knob is for what, and then you can just look at the marks on it and you'll say, okay, I know where I'm set at, and you can keep going and just pick up the torch and go, whether it's 2 days later or. And another thing that I like about this panel is that it's actually color coded. So all these knobs, the green ones on the left, they're sort of together, and the blue ones, so each color represents a function that's predominantly used together. Let's go over the knobs. So the first ones will be the green knobs over here. So this one is the start amps. This one here is the end amps. The one below it is up slope, down slope, pre-flow, post-flow. This is the main amps. This is the arc force and dig feature, and this is used with the stick function, and that basically stabilizes the arc when you're welding. These two yellow knobs are for AC, so that's the AC balance. Sorry, that's AC frequency. The one on the right is AC balance. This is the blue cluster of knobs is used for pulse function, so that's the pulse. And this one is actually controlled by this little button here, which controls low and high. So when you switch the pulse to low, this knob will go from 0.5 to 25 pulses per second, and when you switch it to high, then it will go to a larger scale, and it will go from 25 pulses per second to 250 pulses per second. This here is the pulse amps, and this is the pulse amps. This is the pulse time on, and I'll include a little picture that I think is best to describe these three knobs. This obviously is the pressure gauge for the plasma torch, and these little buttons, of course, you can select TIG, plasma, and stick. This one controls AC or DC, and this is the 2T and 4T switch. What I didn't like about the control panel is that when you're actually turning some of these or all of the smaller knobs, they do not display in a digital display here. So that would have been nice, but you know, then again, if it would make the machine a lot more expensive, then I can do without it. So the only knob that controls this digital display is this main knob for the amperage. So that's it for the control panel. Let's set up for stick welding. All right, I happen to have this piece of scrap tubing, and I want to show you guys because it's interesting. This was in my scrap bin, and I was selling my AC buzz box, and I kind of regret selling it now. And the reason being is I've had it for a long time. It was one of those Century buzz boxes, AC, and it just did AC and that's it. And I actually never used it because I could never get a nice bead. And when I was selling it, I pulled this up and I just wanted to show the guy that it actually does work. And this is the bead that I laid with it, and I don't know if you can see. And I actually really tried to do a nice job with it, and that's how it came out. Now, mind you, I have only 15 minutes of hood time with a stick welder, so we'll see how I'm going to do with this one. So this will be a good experiment to see if someone that is a complete noob can stick weld. So we're going to be using a 7018, and this is a 3/32 electrode, and this is actually a really nice stick holder. All right. So that's how it looks. Okay, it's nothing to write home about, but I gotta say, if you compare that to what I did here with the AC, yeah. So over here, that's pretty nice, I gotta say. I think, you know, if I work with the settings. Now that we know how the machine stick welds, perhaps we don't really know because I can't really stick weld, but the results, considering I was doing it, are really amazing. And let's go and set up for TIG welding. Now I gotta say, I've never actually TIG welded before, so you guys will be watching me TIG weld for the very first time. And I've read about it. I sort of have an idea how to do it, but I've never ever actually TIG welded in my life. So it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. Let's set up and let's try it. How hard could it be? Let's see. Alright guys, this is day 2 of the review of the Everlast 205Si, and I actually tried a TIG welder on it, and I gotta say I did really horrible, and that was the first time I've ever actually TIG welded. I don't know if you can even call it welding, but that's the piece over here, and I just blew out a hole, and it sort of holds together, which is a nice thing. I'm going to give it another shot. I had a good night's sleep, and what I have to do though is I have to sharpen the tungsten electrodes. I've dipped them both, so I have a little technique that I picked up from YouTube, and I don't remember who it was. I think it could have been welding tips and tricks from Jody, or another place, I'm not sure where, but it's basically just holding the tungsten in the drill, and I have a little angle grinder, air powered angle grinder, and basically I'm just going to use this little sandpaper just for tungsten sharpening. And I think the trick is to watch the sparks coming off of the disc, and then you will, if they're coming off in a straight direction, then you can tell that it's being sharpened correctly. So let's try it. Let's give it a try again and see. I'm going to change out the shade to a shade 10. I have a shade 11 in this Jackson, which is, by the way, a really good helmet, and I have a gold 11 lens in here, and that's the only. It seems not to bother my eyes, so I only use the out of darkening helmet for tacking, and I just and I use the passive lens for welding, and that seems to work pretty good for me. So anyway, I'm going to give it a try, and let's see. I'm going to change out the lens to my cheapo sort of Harbor Freight equivalent helmet, and I have a lens 10, and we'll see if I can see a little bit better with a cheater lens in there too. So hopefully that will help. pulsing. So I'm basically pulsing one times per second, and I'm adding the rod when it's pulsing, and then I'm moving it as the pulse is at its low point. So I think I'm getting better at it. So here it is, guys. I've got to say, this is actually my second time. So the very first time that I welded was yesterday, and you know, it's not a really good looking weld, but it actually holds together, and it's in one piece. So, you know, mind you, this is 1/8 of an inch thick, so it was sort of easy. But I think with practice, one can manage. And yes, it's a steep learning curve, I gotta say. So one other thing that I would like to mention, that's on the plasma torch, we have a consumable that has a cylindrical shape to it. And what I didn't like about the 164, this was one of the reasons that I also picked the 205 over the 164, because that torch on the 164, the consumables are tapered over here on the very front. They're a little bit it's got like a little taper on it, and I figured if I'm running this against a piece of straight edge, and I actually plan on cutting some circles out of MDF, 1/2 inch MDF, and running them like this and just guiding it. So I figure, okay, if I move it around and it's got that taper consumable on it, it's going to throw off my measurements as I guide it around the template. So that was one of maybe there is some aftermarket ones that are actually straight that maybe you could put on that torch. I don't know that, but that was another thing that I thought is better on this torch versus the 164. One more thing that I read in the manual, actually when I talked to the sales guy at Everlast, he told me that if you have something that's 3/16 thick or less, you can actually drag this tip on the surface and it will be okay. If you try that with anything over 3/16, you will basically lose the consumable, because the sparks will just go up in here and it's gonna mess up that little orifice that it has in the front. So that's important. That's what he told me. So I know that there is on eBay there is a drag tip that you can actually buy the whole assembly, but it's quite expensive. It's over $100 to buy one of those that come standard, I think, with the really expensive plasma cutters with the Hypertherm or the Lincolns and whatnot, and then you can really drag it. But what I've noticed when I was using it, I actually like to see that little arc. I like to see that little plasma. I can guide it exactly where I want it. So I like that. I think it's not something that I will have to have. So that's that with the plasma torch. First, I was looking at getting a plasma cutter, and I wasn't really after the TIG feature so much and the aluminum side, because I don't really do that that often. It's just a hobby of mine. And then as I started looking into the welders, and I figured out that you could actually, and I found out about Everlast, and I looked at their machines, and I see that, okay, there is a multi-process machine that has the plasma cutter built into it. Then yeah, why not have the TIG welder, and why not have the ability to weld aluminum at the same time and a stick welder? So I thought that was a really good idea, and for the price that I actually paid less for this machine than I would have paid for a legacy brand plasma cutter. So it was a no-brainer for me. Mind you, this machine, okay, it's made in China, but I bet you guys that some of the parts, or maybe a lot of the parts that are in the legacy brand welders and plasma cutters are also made in China. You know, most of the things that surround us these days are made in China. And I've got to say that I think we have this stigma about things that are being made in China, and, you know, people trying to put the Chinese product down. And I have to say, it's not what it used to be. And another thing is we can't really afford in Canada to buy things that are locally made. The reason why we can actually afford so much stuff is because it is made in China, and we have the benefit of the dollar to thank for that, because, you know, the Chinese people are actually working and putting all of this together, and we're buying it at a price that we can actually afford. So if you guys at Everlast are watching this, I must say thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for the beautiful machine that you guys have produced, and I was able to buy one for such a affordable price. So what's my take on this machine? I do not have any experience with any other machines, so I've never actually tried a legacy brand machine, Miller or Lincoln Electric, so I can't really tell how good the TIG is or how good the torch is in comparison, because this is the only one that I've actually held in my hand, and this is only what I can see from pictures, and how flexible it is. To me, this is flexible enough. Stick welding, okay, I must say I can compare, because I had a buzz box. Oh, it's got to be probably about 20 years now, and I did a little bit of welding on the very beginning, and since I was really crappy at it, I couldn't really weld anything together. I just had it sitting in the basement collecting dust, and I've never used it, and I just got busy with the carpentry stuff, and that's it, and it was just sitting there. So I ended up selling it, and I actually sold it last year. After I picked up the MIG, I got into welding again, and just sparked my interest. But anyway, so to make the long story short, I had the stick welder to compare to, and I must say the DC welding with the 7018 rod is like night and day. I was able to weld and lay down a bead that's maybe not the best looking, but it worked. It actually is good enough to where you can sort of weld, let's say, a welding table, and it's good enough. So yes, so the welder performs amazingly when I compare it to the Century Buzz box. Once again, I don't know any other welders that have, let's say, the same features. Then it would be comparing apples to apples. The plasma cutter, okay guys, I must say, plasma cutter I'm extremely impressed with. It's cutting 1/4 inch metal like butter, and I'm sure you guys know that this review is, I had to spread it up in a couple of evenings, because there's just so much to talk about with this welder that I wasn't able to fit it all into one evening. So what I did the other day, I have guys actually working on my driveway, so there was like a big piece of steel plate that was in there, square one, and they ripped out the old asphalt, and I decided I'll cut like a nice circle out of that instead of the square big grate. So I used this plasma cutter to cut it, and it just blew me away how easy it was. And I'll show you guys pictures of it. Actually, I'll put them into the video. I have a 3-year warranty on the machine, so at least I know that for 3 years it will be working good, or at least I'll be covered if something happens to it. Other than that, from what I can tell, this is a really good machine. This is from what I can tell from my perspective. And I've got to add, I actually bought this machine on my own. I'm not getting paid by Everlast and they didn't send this over to me like maybe some guys are getting paid to advertise other stuff. I'm just making this video for you guys to help you out if you're looking for one. I was actually looking for this, and I was searching on YouTube for this particular model, and there's only 2, maybe 3 videos where guys just have the machine but they never actually turned it on. Or actually Mr. Tig, I think, turned it on, but there was guys that didn't turn it on, and I thought I would make one to help you guys out and see that if you guys want to buy one, at least you'll have some sort of an idea. So yeah, I'm really happy with it so far. Maybe in a couple of years I'll do another update and a review of the machine, how it's performing, and how things are with it. So yes, I would recommend it. From my first impression, is really really amazing. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching.